Hola, welcome to the Chewy Journal podcast special episode. I'm your host, Comedian Yang. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming 3 individuals to our conversation. Joining us are Edu Ahuda, not only a head coach, but also a co-owner of the Bakery CrossFit. Alongside him is Melissa Hong, a formidable athlete representing the Bakery athletics team. And last but not least, we have Diogo Costa, who wears dual hats as both a data analyst at Revolut and an athlete within the Bakery athletics team. This podcast is being recorded live at Bakery Cafe. If you happen to be nearby, why not stop in for a cup of coffee or even join us for a training session at the Bakery CrossFit? We'd be super happy to have you here. So get comfortable and let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome, Melissa, Diogo, and Edu. Welcome to my podcast. To start with, let's do a round of the table introduction to let my listener familiarize with your voice and your involvement with the bakery.
I'm Melissa, and I've been at the bakery since January 2020. I'm originally from the United States, but I've been living in Lisbon for the past 4 years and in Europe since 2016. And I've been doing CrossFit for a long time. I started when I was a teenager, just kind of off and on since then, but I didn't really get super into it until I started at the bakery. And then I met Edu, who you'll hear from in a second, who's my coach and also my boyfriend.
Well, I'm Diogo. I'm from Madeira. I actually started CrossFit, I think, 3-4 years ago. At that time, I was doing CrossFit in Madeira. Then I met someone who used to train at the bakery and was there. I think it was during COVID. Basically, they recommended me the bakery, and when I came to Lisbon, I joined the bakery and I couldn't leave. I've done CrossFit for a while. When I came here, I already did it more than most people do it. but the environment in bakery make me I do it every day, a lot of for a long time.
Yeah, I got a similar story. When I first moved from UK to Portugal, I went to Madeira, and the people from there, they introduced me to the CrossFit, because back then I have no idea what it is. It's more like a boot camp. We train outside, and they say it's a CrossFit. And when I moved to Lisbon, they introduced me here, and I just live across the road back then. So this became my go-to gym.
Nice. Hi, my name is Edu. I'm the head coach here at the bakery. I started the bakery in 2018 as a member. I started doing the classes. Back then our head coach was Miranda, who left to live in the US. And I became co-owner around 2 years ago and head coach around 2 years ago. I've been doing CrossFit since 2014, and I've been doing physical activities my whole life. I start training regular gym when I was 16 years old. So that's a little bit of my story.
So as we wrap up the CrossFit game, I'd like to know how is everyone feeling about this game, and maybe start with some brief introduction to my listener who are not familiar with what is CrossFit and what is CrossFit Open.
The Open is basically the beginning of the season for the athletes who compete at the games, but also is the start of the challenging part for regular members. That's why we here at the bakery like so much to push for the Open, because it's an opportunity for you to push a little bit more than you go in a regular class environment. There's nothing wrong in doing the class and not pushing every day. That's actually something that we preach a lot, respecting your limitations, but also you need that extra push sometimes to progress forward. So I think the Open is the perfect opportunity to do that. And we do that not only at the Open, but also at our winter games and summer games. That's why we like those events so much. So from my perspective, the Opens is really important, not only for being the beginning of the season, but also for giving the members the opportunity to push themselves in a competitive environment. People who usually wouldn't go to a competition can have a little bit of that feeling and overcome a little bit their limitations and their level, let's say.
For me as an athlete, especially the Open has been different for every year, because maybe giving a bit more introduction into this. So before the Open, you used to qualify only top 10% to the next phase, which are the quarterfinals. Nowadays, you qualify 25%. 10% was a bit restrictive. So at the beginning, the Open was where I would go all in, do everything I could, try to get to those 10% so I could qualify to the next phase. This year, I've tried to approach it in a different way, try to control myself. Whereas I would, there was years where I would redo like 3 times just to make sure I could get that score. This year I tried, with some guidance from my coach, we decided that no redos, we'll just do it once and focus on the next phase because it's less restrictive than it was before. We knew we would get to the next phase, so focusing on that, quarterfinals next month, and that's probably where I want to actually be at my best and do everything I can to have a really good score.
Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit because you said maybe people don't know what the Open is. So also just to explain, I do mention that it's the beginning of the CrossFit Games season. So the way that the competitive season, like for the world, works is that you start with the Open, and there's 3 weeks, and every week they release one workout, and everybody does the workout. All around the world does the same workout, and you have from about Thursday until Monday to do that workout, and you can redo it as many times as you want to try to improve your score, and then you submit it online, and there's like a global leaderboard that compares everybody in the world, so you can see how you stack up against everyone, which is really nice because as great as like local and even national competitions are, when there's that many people, hundreds of thousands of scores, it really shows you like a more accurate kind of representation of where you are in comparison to everybody else, because it takes away like that margin of error, it's a bigger sample size, I guess. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that's really cool about the Open. And then as Diogo mentioned, from that, you can qualify onto the quarterfinals, which is another, we say like an online competition. But that one is more like the structure of a regular CrossFit competition. So you have about 5 WODs, 5 workouts that you have to do over a 5-day period. This year, I guess it's six days. They increased it a little bit. And then from that, only a very, very, very small number of people move on to semifinals, which is an in-person CrossFit competition. They have one for each region of the world. And then from that, only the top 40 men and women in the world and in each category move on to the CrossFit Games. So for normal people like us, the Open and the quarterfinals are really, for now, the only thing that's within reach. One day semifinals would be like amazing, but yeah. And then my personal experience with the Open is that I actually did it for the first time in 2015 when I was in college in the US, in Miami. I went to a CrossFit Box there, but I wasn't very serious about it, obviously. It was like a hobby. And I was terrified to compete like in any form. And I remember so clearly, I did it in 2015 and 2016 at that box in Miami. And it was such a big deal because I was so nervous. And I was like not used to being in that kind of environment at all, with that kind of pressure, with someone judging me, with people watching, with having like a ranking. So it's different now because I compete now and I'm used to it, but I remember what it feels like, for the vast majority of people who do CrossFit, the Open is like this very unique experience where you get to challenge yourself in a way that you're probably not comfortable with. And it really is a huge accomplishment, like just to do it at all. It doesn't matter what your score is, or if you do it scaled or RX or foundations. So like I did it, everything scaled in 2015 and 2016. And it's cool because I can actually look back and see my scores from those years and see how much I've progressed and how far I've come. Yeah. So after that, after 2016, when I moved to Europe, I sort of stopped doing CrossFit. And then when I settled in Lisbon, I started at the Bakery and I started training more seriously. And then when the next Open came up, I was super excited because it was this opportunity to like prove my fitness level, sort of. Like I knew that I had gotten a lot stronger and a lot fitter. But it was this kind of benchmark to have like a tangible representation of how far I'd come and how much progress I'd made. And then from then, the next year, my goal was to make quarterfinals. And yeah, this year, so I've been doing it now 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. And this year, my goal was very similar to Diogo's, which was to sort of like step back a bit and have a good time, enjoy it a little bit more, not put so much pressure on myself. not worry about redoing the workouts or trying to get like the best possible score, just like being confident in my own fitness level and try not to overthink too much because that's probably my biggest problem in CrossFit and in life. But yeah, I'd say, to answer how I'm feeling like me, and I think Diogo and the other people that we train with definitely achieved our goal this year of just enjoying it and like not being so competitive with the Open, because for us at least it's really not about that. It's about the community experience and about enjoying the process and just having a good time. Sorry, that was a long answer.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. It's great. Yeah, I want to learn your story. Because for me, the first day I came back to Bakery, and it was open, and I was forced to sign up after like 3 months no training, and I said, okay, whatever, I'll just do it. Yeah, but that's my first time doing open, and before I have no idea what is that. And after these 3 weeks, I feel I learn a lot, I can say.
Right.
Yeah, not just my physical, but my mental strength.
Nice.
Because a lot of what works is not just depends on how strong you are. It's like how you cannot just not give up.
Exactly.
Yeah, do your best.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also found the strategy part is very important. Yeah, it's not just do it, but you need to be like pace yourself or try some different method. Yeah, I
Perfect.
found it.
Yeah, that's it. So you got it.
Yeah, finally it's over.
You win the Open.
Yeah, as you mentioned, if you look back, maybe you can see how you progress. I find that's more important. It's not about the ranking.
Exactly.
Yeah, and back to you, Edu. I want to know, like, how did you get up into coaching, and how you become the co-owner of this Bakery CrossFit?
So I start like 2006. I start my college graduation. I got into college to get my bachelor's. Right now I have a bachelor degree in physical training. I have an ongoing master's. I haven't finished yet. I have to finish my master's. I have a physiology degree by the Duke University. So I have 16 years of experience training. But I only started with CrossFit per se. As I said, like I started training in 2014. My first contact with CrossFit wasn't like the greatest, because back then we had like this kind of like rivalry between regular gym and CrossFitters. And the place that I got to know CrossFit was the place that was being a trainer, like in a regular gym. So I had this like very like defensive mode against CrossFit. And for a while I kept that mindset. So later in 2014, I tore my ACL doing jiu-jitsu. And after the surgery, I gained like a lot of weight. I became like overweight. And when I recovered from that surgery, one of my friends came to me, also a trainer, came to me and said, like, hey, why don't you do this class? It's not CrossFit, it's just similar, but you're gonna enjoy it. And it was actually CrossFit. So like I did it and I loved it, and I got like in love with the methodology and made sense to me. And then I started doing in 2016. I got my level 1 in, I want to say 2017, so 1 year later. So in 2016, I started coaching without my level 1, because I already like had a background in physical training. But then I got my level 1, now I have my level 2. And in 2018, I came to the Bakery. I came from Brazil, and then I came to the Bakery. I started as a member, and I visit like 2 or 3 boxes here in Lisbon, other than the Bakery. But the Bakery got me since I got here. Yeah. When I put my foot on that box, I was like, okay, there is something about this place that welcomes you. And then in 2019, one of the coaches had to leave, and then they offered me, Hugo, the owner, who is now my partner now, offered me a spot, and then I started teaching the classes, and it just kept growing from there. 2 years ago, he offered me to become his partner and to be the head coach, and obviously I said yes. And that's when those two, Melissa and Diogo, were like starting to get a little bit more serious about the competitive side. So they were the one that pushed me to like, hey, we should have like something designed for people who want to compete, and you should do it. And that's something that I never like had put more thought into it. So they made me start thinking about that and put all of those years that I have in the background that I have, and I just started from there, like developing. And now the bakery athletics is the part that we have for people who want to compete. Our regular members can do our classes. We have a lot of like specific classes to help develop that. In the athletics, Slavik and I are responsible for the programming, and the classes, I'm the responsible for the programming. Yeah.
How do you design the whole program?
Ooh.
It's I know it's a complicated
so
like, what's your philosophy?
So basically, I really believe in CrossFit philosophy, that you have to like give different stimulus and try to be as variable as possible, so people don't get into like the comfort zone and don't get into plateaus. So the way that I think of programming is the athletes had a little bit different approach. So when I start to program, I divide the athletics, what they're going to do, and I try to fit in what the class is going to do into what I plan for the athletes. Because one thing that I find really important is to integrate everyone. I like our boxes is about that. It's about the community. So I don't want to leave the athletes like in one side and the normal people who just want to get fitter and fitter. Normal quotes, right? Get fitter and healthier and better mentally or physically. And I want to divide. I want everyone to be a community. So that's why I try to like keep the stimulus similar from the athletes and the people who come to do the class just for 1 hour and then go home.
Cool.
There's a lot more than that, but
it's like a top level.
You got the gist. You got the gist.
It's a lot of effort. And Diogo, I know you have a daytime job. You are the data analysis from Revolut, right?
Exactly.
So how do you balance your life and training as an athlete? Maybe you need to use your analytic brand to help you with the training. So how do you implement these strengths to your training?
I was already in a different job when we started athletics. As Edu said, this was 2 years ago. I joined Revolut as a data analyst almost a year ago. Time flies by. But yeah, like at the beginning, the idea here is to give some perspective into how I nowadays manage it. But for it, I need to kind of put it into perspective. At the beginning, we were training me, Mel, and Flo, who now moved to France, but he was part of our initial group of training. And we would train in the morning, and I was able to work, come, train in between 10, midday, and then go back to work. Nowadays, it's not as easy. So in this sense, I had to kind of adapt, find a way to make sure that I could prioritize both. And actually, that's where, I mean, there are a lot of people who say I'm like the spreadsheet guy, but that's where being very analyst also allows me, because I like to kind of, first of all, I have a spreadsheet with all my training since probably 3 years ago. I know Mel has one as well. It's kind of a thing. But having this type of data allows you to understand when you're slacking off, because, you know, if you're used to doing everything that's being programmed and then now you're not, you need to either assume that there's no way you can manage it, which is normal, but also there's other ways that you can try to find out where you could be optimizing your day and your life to kind of fit in. So, for example, I bought a couple of months ago, I bought a bike erg because I knew, like, now I moved a bit further away from the bakery, so I know for some days where we have to do low intensity at the bike, I can just do it at home, and this way I can still do all the same amount of work without having to take the commute. And this also, this type of decisions allows you to kind of manage both things at the same time. Also, I feel like our programming is quite well thought in this sense. So there are a lot of people who have different jobs, who work a long time and still manage to fit in, because we cannot always have like 1 hour in the morning, then have our whole day, and then have another hour in the afternoon. Like, it just depends on how you decide to prioritize it as well, because of course when you decide to spend the first hour of your day training and the last hour of your day training, it means you won't be maybe watching Netflix at night or but it's kind of the decisions you need to make. But also, for me, it's one that's easy.
Now, how did you end up in Europe? And a bit love story about you and Edu, if possible. Because I know a lot of members are curious to know, especially me.
People have been asking.
Yeah, and your routine for you every day.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I grew up in North Carolina. I went to college in Miami, and when I was in college, I studied abroad in Argentina. And when I was in Argentina, I did a lot of traveling, and I really got this idea of like I want to live outside of the U.S. So when I graduated from college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to get like a full-time job or go to graduate school. And so I ended up applying for a program in Spain where they hire native English speakers to be like English teaching assistants in public schools. And it's a year-long program. So you go, I was placed in Madrid, in a school in Madrid, for like the academic year. It's basically a part-time job. And they pay you, and you get a degree, like a certification for teaching English. So it's a pretty cool deal. And you get to live abroad for a year. So I was like, great, I'm just going to do that while I figure out, what's next for me, like what I want to do with my life. I'd always wanted to go to Spain. I'd never been to Europe before. So I moved to Madrid, like without knowing anybody. Luckily, I already spoke Spanish, so that made it a little bit easier. And I ended up loving it and ended up getting a job there. I actually started working as a freelancer while I was teaching English to make a little bit of extra money. And then I ended up getting a full-time job with a company in Madrid that allowed me to stay there after that year was up. So I lived in Madrid for almost 3 years. And then one summer I did like a solo trip to Portugal for a month and just kind of traveled all around the country, started learning how to surf, started learning Portuguese, and loved it, and decided, okay, I need to move to Portugal because I liked it way better than Madrid. And then I went back to Madrid and, figured out a plan for how I could quit my full-time job, become a full-time freelancer, and move to Portugal. So I did that in 2019. And again, I was sort of like traveling around. I was volunteering at hostels mostly, so I would have like free room and board, and learning how to surf, improving my Portuguese. And then eventually, after about 6 months of that, I decided I needed to kind of settle a little bit, have like my own space, have more of like a home base, and that's why I came to Lisbon. So I came to Lisbon to settle, and then COVID happened. So I got a bit stuck in Lisbon, which turned out to be a good thing. This was in, obviously, the beginning of 2020. So I ended up staying here for maybe longer than I would have otherwise. And I actually started at the bakery like right when I moved to Lisbon before COVID. I started coming here almost immediately. So that's when I first met Edu in like the beginning of 2020. And then, of course, the box closed for several months in the middle of 2020, but I kept doing like the bakery workouts at home in my apartment while I was in lockdown. And then when it reopened, I came back and I started getting more and more like committed to training, partly because I just didn't have anything else to do. And I didn't really know anybody in Lisbon because a lot of people had left. Yeah. A lot of like international people had gone back to their home countries because of COVID. So I was a little bit like lonely. And I started training here. And of course, you meet so many people at the bakery. It's such a good community. And I started, talking more to the coaches and getting them to help me practice my Portuguese. But Edu was really the only one that would speak Portuguese to me. The others were always talking to me in English. So I remember I liked that about him right away. And then, I guess we started like talking on Instagram. He messaged me on Instagram, slid into my DMs, and then eventually we went on like a few dates, hung out outside of the gym, and I mean it, progressed from there. And after a few months, we started like dating, made it like official. And this was about the same time that the second lockdown happened in Portugal. So we had just sort of become a couple. No one at the bakery knew. Well, I think people suspected, but no one like really knew. So it was a little bit of a secret. And then we went into lockdown, the bakery closed again. And yeah, we just obviously started spending a lot of time together because we were in lockdown. We were in each other's like COVID bubble, you know? And that's also, around the time that I started getting more serious about training, partially because I was just trying to keep up with Edu. And I wanted to like prove that I could, that I could do like more intense workouts and more volume. And he really started encouraging me. And again, it was COVID, so there wasn't that much else to do other than train. I guess my daily routine now, so I've been a full-time freelancer. Well, I say full-time, but it's not really full-time, I've been like a freelancer for my main source of income for years now, which is great because I have a lot of flexibility, not only with when I work, but also how much work I take on. So it's very easy for me to prioritize training. So I do basically what Diogo was saying that he used to do, where I wake up in the morning, I work for an hour or two, then I come to the bakery around 10, do usually about 2.5 hours of training, and then work more in the afternoon, and sometimes have another training session depending on the day in the afternoon. But I really like my work around my training. My training is like the main thing that defines my schedule for each day, which is a huge privilege, and also very helpful in terms of like making progress and being consistent. I'm really, really lucky that I'm able to design my whole life around training, basically.
And Edu, you mentioned the community concept for CrossFit. Can you tell us what makes Bakery stand out? If there's a new member who wants to join the Bakery, what advice would you give to them?
To be completely honest, I think that when I got here, the Bakery already had this culture. What I try to do is to keep the levels of acceptance. I think that's the biggest thing here at the bakery. What I try to like keep doing is like whoever comes, doesn't matter like what's your fitness level, what's your life been before, what you have done, who you are, where you're from, like everyone is accepted here. And I really don't have any advice for people who want to join. It's just like come and you can feel it on the walls, and how welcoming you're gonna be. And the way that I always try to keep that like that is by promoting those events, put people to like work together and do like team events or do something outside the bakery so you can like know each other and create bonds between each other, and everyone is going to like create bonds to different people. And that's what I've tried to do. I think beyond the fitness level, the importance of the bakery and the role of the bakery in people's life is to develop those relationships. So I just try to like do my best to make people create those relationships and develop those relationships with each other.
Can you tell us more about the winter game and the summer game?
The summer games is basically our anniversary. So I think it's June now, you caught me, I don't know the actual date. Melissa is the one that knows the dates in our relationship session. The summer games is the celebration of our anniversary, and the winter games is just like the end of the year.
Not our anniversary, the bakery's anniversary.
We should have a festival. Mel and Diogo Day.
Now you can see why we get along so well. Right? It's like I get like the gist of it, and she gets the details. She organizes my thoughts. Like the bakery's anniversary. That's as I said in the beginning, like it's the same principle as the Open, is to get people into that competition environment. Again, not in like an unhealthy way, quite the contrary, is a super healthy and like accepting environment. And that's why we do in teams, so people can like do with someone that they like or someone that they feel they would be comfortable with competing. And there is no pressure, but there is a little bit of pressure, so you can like push yourself and like go for it. You participate, you know how it is. So every year we have the summer games and the winter games. We already know the date. I'm not gonna tell you right now, but we already know the date for this year's summer's game. And we always try to make like a surprise, like surprise people to what they're gonna do.
Okay. And Diogo, can you tell me more about the Bakery Athlete program and what do you enjoy most and any good story you can share?
Also, I'll go back to when it started. It's been really interesting to see how it has developed, because this started with Edu writing some things on the board for 2 or 3 of us, and then we having some type of training on one app, and then this evolved to something more concrete. And then, so it's really interesting looking backwards and see how much effort Edu has put into this and how different it got. And more than that, the amount of people that have joined and how it has changed. Because we used to be 3, and now we are at least 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 3 in another box. So it's like, it's really interesting. And also, it's really well thought for us in the sense of we get an input on what we want, and so giving some perspective into it, we tell Edu what competitions we may want to do or may not want to do. Edu has this into account when programming the whole season. We have when we're starting new blocks, so to give a perspective, when you're doing this type of training, you need to have some type of blocks so that you're not always going full send. Because when you're kind of a beginner, if you do strength every now and then, you're always going to get stronger. When you've been doing strength work for some time, that's not the case. It's not like I can come and do strength every other week and get stronger. So Edu has put a lot of thoughts into these blocks, and then this allows us to, when we start a block, we always have this meeting where we understand why we're doing what we do, because that's something that I really need. If I don't understand why I'm doing something, I'm not going to do it for a long time, because again, it comes back to the prioritization, and if I don't know why I'm doing something, maybe I should be doing something else that's more important, you know. So that's something that really resonated with me, understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing, and feeling that if I have some type of concern or if I want like something changed, this is always taken into account, which is something that, because I know a lot of people enjoy, and these programs I think have their own merit, but I know a lot of people enjoy like the proven program that you pay 30. I don't want to be quoted on this, so I don't know how much it is. But the proven, you have the Mayhem program, you have the HWPO program, which are good, but you don't have someone that looks at you every day, that knows what you're actually like, how you're feeling today, what you want to do in 2 weeks. And this type of knowledge is something that really makes a difference when you're at a different level. Because I used to do, and going back to this, I used to do proven fitness when I started in CrossFit, which was good. I developed a lot. Yeah. But at the same time, if I wanted to go in a competition in 2 months, the program was not, as I was talking about the blocks. So the program might be in a strength block, and I would get to the competition, I would be strong for sure, but I wouldn't be able to do a WOD because that's not what we're focusing on. So this type of individualized thinking, and also from weightlifting. So I didn't mention it, but even in weightlifting, we send our videos. We have some review from Slavic. Slavic tells us, okay, this week we're going to do this extra thing because your hips are going too high. Or I see that you're scared to get under the bar. This week we're going to do this extra thing for you. And this type of thing, you don't get it. Or at least you don't get it with this type of quality, in my opinion.
And Mel, I know you participated a lot of a competition last year. And what's the biggest challenge you are facing when you are doing all this type of competition? Like how do you have any tips for training your mind? Especially, especially for me, because when I'm still a beginner, and every time I see the weights, like heavy weights, or the gymnastic movement, I'm super scared, and I don't know how you overcome this fear and keep challenging yourself.
Yeah, good question. Well, so first of all, I have to say, like, I was very resistant to competing at first. The only reason I started competing was because Diogo convinced us to go to a competition in Madeira in 2022. And I was nervous about it probably for like 3 months leading up to it. And when I say nervous, like, I mean, like, I had like anxiety. I was like terrified. I was thinking of like all the things that could go wrong, like all the worst case scenarios. And, you know, I still have this experience, but especially at the beginning, the first couple of competitions that we did in 2022. So in 2022, we only did 2 competitions. And both times, for the few days leading up to the competition, I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't know why I signed up for this. This was a terrible idea. Like, I wanted to back out, basically. So it definitely isn't something that comes naturally to me. Like, I really had to like force myself to face that fear and do it. And the thing is that while you're doing it, you have a lot of anxiety and nerves as well. Every time before you go out to do another WOD, you know, you have to go to the warm-up area, you get nervous all over again, you go out on the floor, there's all these people looking at you, it's a lot of pressure. So I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, I love it, it's super fun, I've always loved it. Like, I definitely had to learn to love it. But the thing is that after you finish a competition, you feel so good. Like, it's this huge sense of accomplishment. Not even so much for, you know, like your ranking or how you actually did in the competition, but just that feeling of being so scared to do something and then doing it. I mean, that's a universal, like, that applies to a lot of things, right? So after I did those first 2 competitions, I was like, okay, I think I actually want to do this. And I knew that, you know, I want to enjoy it more. I want to be less nervous for upcoming competitions. And the only way to achieve that is to just do a lot of them. Because the more you do it, the less nervous you get, the more used to, it's not that you stop getting nervous, but you start to learn how to handle the nerves and how to not let it like make you miserable and to expect it. So now every time I go to a competition or do the Open or any, we do like online qualifiers here sometimes at the box, I always get nervous. It's just that like now I am better at, like, I expect to get nervous, I know I'm gonna get nervous, and I know that like I'm gonna be able to perform well even with those nerves, because that was the main thing that scared me at the beginning, was like, how am I gonna go out there and lift like a heavy barbell or do like a complex gymnastics movement when I'm this nervous, like I'm gonna mess up, I'm gonna, you know. And now I've been in so many situations where I was under so much pressure and somehow I managed to still go out there and do it, that I don't let it bother me as much now when I get nervous. So I would say like the main thing is whatever scares you, you know, whatever you're scared of doing, like you just have to do it and force yourself to keep doing it until it gets less scary. And it's really a skill. Like Edu says a lot that competing is its own skill set. It's different from just coming into the box and doing workouts in your comfort zone, in the place that you're used to, surrounded by the people that you're used to train with. Competing and going out into like an unfamiliar environment and not knowing what to expect and having people watching you, like that's something that is, it's a different type of accomplishment, and it's something that I think everyone should do. Like you asked Edu, like what some advice would be, and I think, yeah, like participating, like for new members or people who want to maybe get more into CrossFit, like participating in things like the Open or the Winter Games and the Summer Games. And then, you know, maybe if you get a little bit more experienced and you want to try a competition, like a lot of people say, oh, I'm not good enough to compete yet, or even I'm not good enough to do the Open yet. And I always am like, but you are, like everyone is, you know, like there's no such thing as like, there's no point that you're going to reach where like, now you're good enough to compete. Like everybody can compete if they want to. And I think it's like a very rewarding experience for everybody. Like no one, I don't think anybody goes to a competition and then is like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter what happens. It's always a positive experience or like a growth experience. So my main advice is just try it. Like just do it, see what happens, you know?
When you think about competing, it's like you always think about the best. But I mean, if we were like that, even us, we won't compete because we're not like the best. And for that reason, like, there are a lot of competitions, and probably 80% of the competitions I go, they have scale divisions. They have masters divisions. They have these divisions that allows anyone who wants to start competing to start competing. And that's something that I totally agree with Mel. It makes sense, like, especially if you're planning in the long term, because I see a lot of people who are like, no, I'm going to start competing in 2 years. Then why are you waiting 2 years?
Yeah.
Just get that first competition out of the way, start getting that experience, and that's going to help you a lot.
That's something that I always like tell them, because in the beginning that was like an issue before a competition, like what Melissa's saying, like she would get like very nervous and she would like have second thoughts and all kinds of fears. Diogo as well. And I would always say this to like reassure them that everyone passes through that. So when in my experience competing, I would also feel the same. So I remember my first competition, it wasn't CrossFit, it was a jiu-jitsu competition. It was a little bit cloudy, and I remember thinking, oh, it's gonna rain, so good, they're gonna cancel the competition, like they're not gonna have a competition because it's gonna rain, good. And everyone passed through that, like they can lie about it and say they're like, oh no, I'm comfortable, I don't get like nervous and all of that. I don't believe it. I think everyone gets nervous. The good thing about the competition is to learn how to control those nerves and turning that into something positive. And I told Diogo and Melissa already this year, this is the year that I feel that both of them learn how to do that. The Open this year was like completely different than was last year, because they learn how to like use that in their favor, not against them. So yeah, just wanted to like finish with that.
I mean, and we could also add that not only in terms of CrossFit, but in terms of like the person you are, it allows you to grow a lot. Because, for example, I used to compete in handball, so I didn't feel this nervousness that Melissa was talking about, but I did feel this urge or this necessity to compare myself to others. So I remember clearly, like my first 2 years of competition, I used to like get on the floor, start competing, and then look around, and then like, where am I compared to others? Is everyone ahead of me? Like, and it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, like, I'm not gonna do better if they are stronger than me, and I shouldn't do worse, which happened, if they are not as good as me in that world. So, even in this sense of like learning more about yourself and dealing with this mental work that you need to do, and this type of personality things that are like more clear when you are under this stress, is really good, like to just just do it.
Yeah, true. I do feel like before, every time I do the wall, I will say, okay, what a hater, what a Marcella did. But later I feel like there's no point you compare with each other, because we all have different heights, weights, and genes. So if I getting better than my yesterday's performance, I'm super happy.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and in the competition, it's a good thing you can see the benchmark globally, because you know your place and you know there's the huge potential for you to grow. Yeah, I love it.
Nice.
Okay, and Edu, can you introduce the team in Bakery? Because apart from you, there are many other coaches and staff. Can you give us a brief introduction?
So yeah, we at the Bakery, we have Hugo, who is the co-owner with me. He's the founder. He's one of the original CrossFit members at CrossFit Portugal. So Hugo to this day is a translator for CrossFit. He's not as active as he used to be, but Hugo is one of the original ones. The Bakery, I think, is the oldest one in the center of Lisbon. So there we have Hugo, then we have Bia, which take care of the management and the desk work and manage the team under the desk. The team under the desk is Thais and Rebecca, and they are under the Bia's scope. And to the coach, we have Sara, which is a level 2 CrossFit trainer. Sara was a member here at the Bakery a long time ago, before me actually. Before I came to the Bakery, Sara was one of the members. She left, she worked in changed a little bit of boxes, she worked in other boxes, and now she came back as a coach. We have Slavik, which started as a weightlifting coach. He didn't have his level 1, but gradually he started like falling in love for the CrossFit, and he's getting more and more into that, and now he has a level 1. Then we have Hugo Moita, which was a member as well. Hugo Moita started like I think 1 year before I started the bakery as a member, and he's been with us for like a long time now. He's a level 2 as well. Then we have Guy, which is a level 1, and Guy came from Brazil, and he's like the most recent coach here at the bakery. And then we have me, CrossFit level 2, and yeah.
Nice. How do you collaborate with them? Like, do you have a weekly meeting?
Yeah, what we do is every 15 days we have meetings where we get everyone together and we talk about dates of the events that we want to do. We talk about any issues that we might find on the classes. We have to try to understand where everyone level is. So sometimes you can discuss one specific member that had an issue or had injury or was pregnant, for example, and then so everyone can be on the same page. So what to do with those members. And the good thing about our team right now is that you can trust in everyone's work. So I have absolutely trust in their capacity to adapt any workout to anyone doing a WOD. So when I program for everyone, and whatever adaptations need to come from that WOD, I know that our coaches are more than capable to adapt and making the most out of the workout for each of our members.
Now another love story from you. As you mentioned beer, so what's your story with her?
We were also involved in that love story.
Yeah, so giving some perspective into the people listening, Bia is my to-be wife in a couple of months, actually.
Congratulations.
And yeah, so when I joined the bakery, I joined around May, because I remember at that time I was still in college, and I came here to do some exams, and that's actually the first time me and Bia had some sort of interaction, because I messaged the bakery. I still have that message. I messaged the bakery that I wanted to train here. She replied that for me to come here, I came. Yeah. We talked. I trained. Nothing happened, and then soon enough I started following the coaches. And then Bia, and Bia was on vacations. I also slid into her DMs. That's kind of
the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. And no, but nothing ever happened. I texted her now and then, but nothing happened. And 6 months later, actually, we started talking here. We hit it off. Things were going great, but she didn't want to have something with anybody from the box because she didn't want to mix those sides. But I'm a very persistent person. I won by getting her tired. and yeah, then it was from then on. It's been great. Yeah, it's also I'm really lucky because she works actually in one of the places I spend most of my time in. And although it's her work, she still finds time to, if I go to a competition, she finds time to go there. If I want to talk about CrossFit, which I talk a lot, she 80% of the time listens to me. So I'm pretty lucky in that sense, to be honest.
That's cool. That's nice. And Mel, can you share something about your vegan lifestyle? Because some of us are very curious. How do you keep this kind of lifestyle? A lot of people have this stereotype. If you are vegan, you probably lack of nutrition. But how do you manage it with your training?
So to give some background, I've only been vegan since, fully vegan since the beginning of 2022, I guess, so about 2 years now. And I became vegan because of Edu. So Edu was vegan when we started dating, and I was not. I was kind of vegetarian, but not fully committed to it. And I didn't have super strong ideas about it. I was just kind of oh, maybe I'll eat less meat, And I remember actually when we started dating, I was kind of concerned. I was he's vegan. How am I going to relate? Because I love food, I always when I traveled, it was always about food, and I would eat anything, I was not picky. And so it just seemed very out of my comfort zone, basically. I was not used to that. But once we started dating, of course, like, I'm open-minded, right? So I would like just eat whatever he was eating. Like, I sort of gradually started like eating less, like completely stopping eating meat and then eating less dairy. And, I kind of just gradually like accidentally became vegan, I like to say. I didn't like make a concrete choice, it wasn't like one day to the next. But I owe a lot of that to Adu because he showed me, I think a lot of people think not only the thing about like nutrients, but just that it's so difficult like to be vegan. Like, they don't know where to begin, or like what kind of food to eat or what recipes to make or how to get enough protein and things like that. And Adu already had a lot of experience with that, so I learned a lot from him. And he showed me like it's possible. And not only that it's possible, but that it's like really enjoyable, right? Yeah. Like, I was very surprised. Like, it sort of, like I said, I was really into food. I always have been. And it just like opened this whole new like window of things to eat, like that I was completely unfamiliar with. So it was exciting. It didn't feel like, depriving myself of anything. It felt more like opening my diet to like lots of new things. And obviously, that came about at around the same time that I was getting more into training. So a lot of people ask me like, oh, did you notice a difference like in your strength levels or in your training, your fitness level with eating vegan? And it's really hard for me to say because I became mostly vegan about the same time that I really started dedicating myself to training. So both of those things happened at the same time. Obviously, I got a lot stronger and a lot fitter. And I don't know how much of that is due to the diet, but I do know that the diet definitely didn't hold me back in any way. I think it's really important, not just if you're vegan or vegetarian, but like for anybody who's training at the volume that we do, you have to think about nutrition in a way that most people aren't used to. And I think that's, Diogo can probably say like that's true for him as well, not being vegan. But you have to like, have a little bit more like involvement in your own diet and, be a little bit more careful that you're getting enough protein. And also for me, the biggest challenge doesn't even have to do with being vegan or getting enough protein. It's just like eating enough because you have to eat a lot more than you're used to eating to support that kind of, volume in training. But yeah, we just eat a lot of food. That's that's what it really comes down to. We eat a lot, and I try not to worry so much about, like, obviously I try to eat a lot of protein, but I try not to worry so much about like quantities because I think that I don't know if it's how much of it is like being a woman. I think it's everybody, but definitely especially women. Like, I've definitely in the past had a lot of periods of my life where I was like worried about eating too much or eating too little or, how many calories am I eating? Like, I think everybody has that to some extent just because of our culture. Becoming a more competitive athlete and also becoming vegan, like the biggest effect of that has been I don't worry about that stuff as much. Like, I know that I need to eat a lot and like it's not as important to like micromanage what I'm eating as long as I know that I'm getting enough calories and enough protein and carbs and fat, like on a sort of macro level. So yeah, for me it's been great, and being vegan is just like one small part of that. It's not even the main thing.
So yeah, like what Melissa said is like true for me as well. Like as I said, like after I have like my ACL, tore my ACL, I gained like a lot of weight, and I was weighing 120 kilos. So I was like pretty heavy, and that was before I was vegan. And I relate completely to Melo in terms of I don't feel the necessity of like waiting and having like control of precisely how many grams of each macronutrient we're eating. We just have to like have the baseline and like go from there. For some people it work like wait and have control of every single gram that you're eating, and that's great if you can do that. If you work like that, perfect. But I think that for me and for Melissa as well, that would be a setback. Like we start getting to our minds, and that will become like a source of stress instead of just nutrition. And the way that I transitioned to veganism was like basically the same thing that happened to Melissa, but with my ex-girlfriend. So she was vegan, and I had the same concerns, and I just realized that to be honest, I never thought about it why someone should be vegan. And the first time that I thought was when she said, I'm going to become vegan. And I was like, okay. Start thinking about it. And the first reaction is always, it doesn't make sense. It's too extreme. Or, but how I'm going to do that? What about this lunch with my... You start like putting like those excuses in front of it. And little by little, you just start to learn that you're just making excuses. You know that deep down, you know that it makes sense. So, for me at least, I'm not saying that makes sense for everyone, but for me, it made sense to not hurt animals, to not cause any unnecessary harm. And the more I start digging into like the subject, and more sense made to me. And now I'm vegan for I think almost 7, 8 years now. I think, yeah. The only thing that you need to, like, in my opinion, the only thing that you need to be really concerned about is supplementing yourself with B12. And other than that, just try to like control how many calories you're eating and like see if you can get minimum protein. But it's basically a regular diet. You're just not causing any harm, I would say.
What about you, Diogo? What's your diet look like?
I'm not vegan, as Mel said. Not yet.
Just kidding.
But yeah, like, so that's something that, I mean, it's not amazing. Like, I know my diet could be better. I know my diet has been worse, and it has been like the main source of most injuries I've had. I can trace it back to periods where not only I was not eating right, but I was eating lots of sugar, lots of...
Oh, the pastry in Portugal. Oh, my God.
I'm more guilty because, and I think this kind of ties back to what Mel said, is like, if you have a 2-hour session workout, especially in the evening, and then I go home, I have dinner, and then I would buy this pint of ice cream and had the pint of ice cream in on top of dinner, because I would spend most of my day working, so little food intake, then train, then my body would say, give me something because I need it. And since I've started actually taking that into account, first of all, for most of it also, it was due to hydration. So most of us, we don't think too much about how much water we drink, which is something that it's really important. And then like just making sure that I don't not eat too much. So in this sense, is like I try to have a big breakfast, a big lunch, so that when I come training and then I go back home, I know that I can have dinner and not feel this urge to go on like a lot of sugar, a lot of food that are calorie dense, because my body's needing it. But yeah, my diet is mostly focused on, so nowadays trying to avoid sugar. As Mel said, I don't measure my food, I don't weigh it, I don't feel this need. I'm also very lucky because we split tasks at home, so I'm not cooking my own meals. I'm trying to learn with Matt Fraser, you know, like making BMI Sammy. No, but yeah, I'm lucky that I don't cook most of my meals. But also just making sure that I also have enough protein, because that's also, I feel that the Portuguese diet does not have much into account. So most Portuguese food is very cheese-based, which are very high fat foods, but not protein. So, and the other only option would be having big steaks, having tuna, but then you can also have eggs. So these are all non-vegetarian, but you can also have like chickpeas, things like that, which are lentils, beans, all these type of things that we don't normally cook with, at least most people I know, but it's what gives you that extra protein that you need without having to think too much about it. And then also like supplementing, so you have like whey, you can just grab a scoop of whey, put it in your coffee, you can just buy a bar or a yogurt with whey, so that's kind of how I try to think about nutrition, especially because I don't think going down to the grams, first of all, I don't think it's accurate, because if we think about it, first, the labels are not accurate. When you look at the label at some product, by law, it only needs to be around 20% of that. So if you see that something has like 300 calories, it can be 360, it can be 240. And on top of that, you weight it, and then, so all these details, you're then measuring something that is not accurate by itself. So there's not much point on it. It makes much more sense for you to make sure that first you feel you're satisfied, and then you can also, so for me, it's about like weighting myself every week or things like that and see a trend. So if I see like, okay, maybe I'm losing half a kilo every week, then I'm probably not eating enough. I'm gaining half a kilo every week, then I'm probably eating too much. But again, on this, I'm very lucky because I'm a guy. So I don't have to deal with all weight fluctuations that women have to. And this allows me to just kind of understand, okay, I'm eating well, I'm not eating well.
Yeah, nice. Okay, last question. So what's your vision for the bakery? Anything excited coming up soon this year?
The next thing coming up is the Summer Games, so it's going to be exciting. We already have like some things planned, but my vision for the bakery, I have like no fear of saying this. Like my goal is to make the bakery the best box in Europe in terms of how good the classes are, how well received people are, the technical level, and also like being known as a box that has standards, like high level quality coaching and everyone being welcome, being received. So that's the goal. And in order to do that is just to like expand and be able to like have more members join our family. So yeah, that's my vision for the future, like having more bakeries spread out through Portugal and through Europe. Yeah.
Nice. And what about you as an athlete?
Again, as I said, we have the quarterfinals in 1 month, but this plan hopefully won't change. I do think I won't be able to commit to it. But yeah, my main plan for the next of this year is to first, after the quarterfinals, I'll have my honeymoon. I'll have 1 month kind of almost off. And then my main goal is to take some time to work all the bases that when we're competing a lot, which is the other downside. Because, I mean, putting it into perspective, in probably the last 2 years, I did 15 competitions. Wow. So that's for me, that's the other extreme. But yeah, like turning a bit down the volume on that, on competing, and putting the work in the foundation, making sure, because again, I feel like, especially the way I am when I'm preparing for, if I know I have a competition in 1 month and we're doing, let's say, some strength work with snatches, and for some reason today the weight feels heavy or something like that, I know I'll try to do it either way, even if it's ugly. And this in turn leads to like me not working on the technique, me just focusing on the outcome, which is good, but it's not what we want in the long term. So circling back to the question, yeah, the plan is to then work on the base, make sure that I have a solid foundation to build upon, and to next year hopefully have some good news and and some really interesting output, I hope.
Yeah.
Just on that topic is like just to help like understanding for people who don't know how the programming works. Every time we go to a competition, we have to pass through a phase that's like a preparation for that competition, those specific block. So in that specific block, 1 week before the competition, we have a tapering phase. After the competition, we also have like a deload phase to recover and go back to normal. So what Diogo is saying is that if you keep doing competitions in a like many competitions one after the other, you spend too little time focusing on what actually we're trying to develop on that block. So I think it's really important for him to like say that, because it is important to recognize when you have to tune down a little bit competition and focus on what we want to develop on that block, so we can have like a better outcome 2 or 3 years from now. So just to have a better understanding why Diogo is taking that decision, and is totally supported by me. And I hope he stick to it.
So yeah, I have a bit of a different vision, like for the year ahead. I want to keep competing. Like I'm definitely going to do more competitions this year. Not too many, based on what Adu just said. But for sure, I want to compete as much as possible to keep like improving that thing I was talking about of like being able to go to competitions and handle the nerves and be comfortable in that environment. But I've also been competing for less time than Diogo, so I still have more work to do. But yeah,
you guys compete together as a partner. Right?
Sometimes, yeah, and I'm gonna try to convince Diogo to do that again with me this year. Even if he's taking a break from competing, he still has to do at least one competition with me, because it's tradition. And we compete very well together. Like I think we make a really good team in terms of like mindset and strategy, and I always have a really good time competing with Diogo. So yeah, definitely gonna do that. But I think my goals moving forward, like first of all, it's just to stay consistent, to keep improving compared to where I was last week, last month, last year, and keep focusing on like my own development rather than comparing myself to other people. Because I think the main thing that I need to improve at this point, like as an athlete, is my mindset. I can be like really, really hard on myself after competitions or like after the Open, for example. And I think that's the main thing that gets in my way, is that, rather than focusing on like the good things and on the progress I'm making, I tend to really fixate on, where I need to be better or mistakes that I made or, comparing myself to other people. And that can really get in your way, as an athlete, because it's really not about any of that. It's about like, of course, knowing your weaknesses and working on them, but focusing on yourself and also like celebrating the wins. So that's really like my main goal at the moment, is like developing a good, like healthy mental relationship with competing. Because I know that that's the main thing that like over the long term, over time, will allow me to improve as an athlete. And also the only thing that I think could really get in my way of improving is, self-sabotage. So trying not to do that as much.
And since Obi is here, let's wrap up this episode with his story. So can you, because when I first joined the gym, I saw him at the door and I was, oh my God. It's kind of the reason I stay here. Yeah, so can you share the story?
Yeah, Obi has been with us for almost 2 years now, yeah. We got him in May of 2022. And Edu and I had been talking about getting a dog, but I'm allergic to dogs, so it wasn't so simple. We had to like find a type of dog that wouldn't provoke my allergies, and we went through a whole process of finding Obi and meeting Obi. And to be honest, at the last minute, I had a lot of doubts because I was like, I don't think we can take on the responsibility of having a dog. But thank God we did, and we brought him home, and since the very beginning, he's spent a lot of time at the bakery. We brought him here from when he was a very small puppy, and so he's very, very comfortable here, and he loves seeing all the members and saying hi to everybody who comes in. He spends, like every day, pretty much part of every day at the bakery, so it's like his second home, and he's a very good boy, yeah.
Just two things that is really important that Melissa forgot to mention. The first is that we always talked about having a dog, but we decided when we were taking care of Boris, which is the original dog from the box. Boris is on the t-shirts from the bakery since, 2015, 14. So we spent 1 week taking care of Boris. And then when we got back home, we're like, okay, the house is like empty. Yeah, we need to get a dog. So she did all the research. She found Obi in Spain, and we drove to Spain to get him. And when we were like 10 minutes away from the place that we were supposed to see him, that's when she started having second thoughts.
Okay.
Good timing.
Yeah, but like everything turned out great, and he's just like the best thing. Yeah, the best dog.
That's so cool. I remember after my first summer game, and Obi was greeting me and Lottie because we were partners together, and just that feeling like, it's all finished, and he's such a calm energy he gives to you. That's the best part.
Great.
Thank you. And thank you, Melissa, Edu, and Diogo for your time today.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really nice.